Hello and welcome everybody to our panel discussion. Can you stop every phishing attack? How? That we organize within the context of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month. My name is Dan Butnaru. I'm Product Marketing Manager, Digital Identity at Atos Cybersecurity Products. And for this panel, we have invited three experts who will share with us their thoughts and insights on phishing attack and how to prevent them. So please let me introduce you to Mark Johnson. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Yeah. Mark is Global Head of Security Atos America, based in Texas. Please let me introduce you André Couturier. Hello. André is a Principal Cybersecurity Consultant, EIM, Identity and Access Management, Atos, based in Cologne, Germany. Hello. And last but not least, Jean-Joseph Herpin, Business Solution Manager, Digital Identity, here in Paris, by Atos, Paris, France. Hi, JJ.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Gentlemen,
Good morning.
thank you very much. Before we head into some questions discussing phishing attacks, prevention of phishing attacks, let me just say some words about this phenomenon. I believe everybody knows what phishing is, and we all have been overwhelmed by all those emails encouraging us more or less in a smart way to click on a button URL, provoke some actions, phishing attack really got more and more sophisticated over the years, and we all are exposed to social engineering attacks more and more, actually. And by the way, the Verizon data breach investigation report had it out that 82%, so 82% of security breaches are involving the human factor. I think this is something that we really have to take into consideration, and this also was one of the motivation to talk about this subject now. So without any further ado, let's get into the subject. With the first question is actually why all those businesses are still struggling with this threat nowadays. Mark, maybe you want to kick this off?
Yeah, sure, Dan. Thank you. So I think I would first respond by saying that it's not just a problem for businesses. It's something that we all share as a common battle in our personal lives, and not just from email either. We're seeing it through social media, seeing it through smishing and other forms of attacks. So it's a struggle that we all have. I think the second thing is, we struggle with it because the attackers, the malicious threat actors, it's very low cost to execute and easy to implement, and it's highly effective. It's like no matter how great your email gateway solution is at blocking malicious messages, there's always going to be something that slips through. And that's why it's absolutely essential that you must have the technical piece covered, but you need to have people who know what to look for, so that way they know what the telltale signs are of a phishing. But not just that, but also to kind of promote or adopt a posture of constant vigilance. We want people to keep security in the forefront of their minds at all times, and always pause and take a moment before they click. I think the third thing is that there's still a common myth, I think, where people believe that only the truly gullible or foolish can get phished. It's something that happens to people who are ignorant or uninformed, but would never happen to us. In actuality, not all phishing attacks are loud and easy to spot. Some are quite crafty. And I think the determined malicious threat actor is certainly the most dangerous, because they will be patient. They will fly under the radar. They will pick their few targets, and they'll camouflage their attack with convincing context. So it's why I firmly believe that anyone can be a victim to phishing, myself included.
And I might add as well the number of attacks that we are facing, even Atos is maybe, we got millions of attacks, phishing attacks, and maybe preventing maybe 5 or 10% are going through. And so related to this number, for sure you will get some on the number of attacks, you will get some gonna go through, and then people who gonna, if they are not awareness, as said Mark, I think awareness of people needs to be to be put in front, so that the human behavior will help to help phishing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is important. What has been stressed out, that there is no. It's not a question of being smart or not being smart. I mean, everybody can be really a victim of phishing, and it's really a danger to threat to everybody. Thanks. Maybe it would be interesting to go actually through some type of phishing attacks. There are different ones, also evolving, as I said, with the technology and the communication that we have. Mark, maybe you can start to list those and explain some of them, the most common ones, and maybe the most sophisticated ones also.
Yeah, sure. So, this has been a problem going on for a very long time, and I'm pleased that technical defenses have improved remarkably over the years. I know that here in Atos globally, we process about 65 million email messages each month, of which 98% of them are classified as a threat message. And it's usually caught by IP reputation. That seems to be the most simplest way to weed out the noise, people trying to spoof or just coming from known mail transfer agents that are have a bad reputation. But there's also other things like checking the URLs that are inside messages, and on top of the normal stuff like checking for spam, malware, using tools like DMARC as a way to validate that the sender is actually coming from someone who claims to be that. Yet with all this great arsenal of defenses that we have, things still invariably are going to slip through. And you asked about like what's perhaps one of the more complex or sophisticated attacks that I've seen. Here's the scenario I might paint for you. So let's say you receive an email from one of your suppliers. It's someone that you know personally, and it's not uncommon that you exchange these messages, to basically share files on your corporate cloud-based file sharing platform. And you get these messages all the time. The file name isn't suspicious in any way. Your email gateway says, DMARC validates the sender. It doesn't have any malicious links in it or attachments. The message is 100% legitimate because it actually is. You click on the URL and it takes you to a bona fide corporate site where you securely log in using your two-factor authentication, and you think, okay, I'm safe. I'm in the trusted area right now. But then once you've landed in this place and you're in a folder, you see the shared file, you click to open the file, which inside that file has a URL. And without much thought, because you think you're in the safe zone, you click on the link, you get prompted to log in again. When you put in your username and password, it kind of gives you a rather ambiguous error message. You try it once again just for good measure, make sure maybe you mistype the password, but you get the same results. So you just decide, well, I'll come back to this later in my day. And unbeknownst to you, that URL that was in that file that was shared through a legitimate platform actually was a malicious URL, and you were taken to a phishing site and you gave away your credentials. So I think that's a prime example how all the technical defenses that we might have at our disposal really wouldn't be able to catch this because it is coming from a legitimate source, and the message itself that you receive through email is completely legitimate.
Andre, maybe you want to add a comment on that, because I know we discussed this.
And we have seen on Mark that the standard approach for a phishing attack is first mail a message to the user which prevent him to some kind of fake website which looks simply like the one he knows. But also this process is evolving, and right now we have a new, let's call it, trend, which is which use DNS spoofing to modify on the client side the name resolution. And so it means the user don't click in any kind of email. He's doing what he's normally do during the day. He call his application and he receive automatically a page which is prepared for the attack, and we have the same behavior. So it's quite more difficult also with the awareness campaign for the user to see that he is under an attack.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you said, because to be honest, I mean, I admit that I've been victim of a phishing attack this year twice, actually, on two different media. One was an email, and the other one was an SMS, or the famous smishing, where you get SMS messages. And in both times, even with my 30 years of professional experience in security, I got tricked. And it's, as you said, it's no longer this very simple email written in a approximative language where you can easily identify that it's a fake one. It's really it got much sophisticated, and we have to be prepared for those kind of threats. Thank you very much. But here's another question that maybe illustrates also, or should illustrate, the impact of phishing. Once an attacker succeeded in phishing, what typically does an attacker do afterwards once he has succeeded? Mark, I think this is a very specific point that goes more to your experience also in the field.
Sure. Yeah. So, phishing attacks are really, I think, to gain a foothold. They want to, rather than do some complex zero-day malware attack or exploit vulnerabilities, it's a lot easier to trick people into giving away their passwords. So if you can get that message to them and make it convincing enough, they're likely to do it. So I think once, if you're, are tricked and phished, the threat actors, they've got multiple things that they might consider doing. I think one of the rising trends is what we're seeing is that sometimes they'll post these compromised credentials on the dark web that they'll make available to the highest bidder. They might even take some screenshots of file directories and things like that just to boost that, this person has really compromised this account. It's I think it's kind of ironic that these threat actors can actually be rated to have a good reputation of selling compromised credentials on the dark web. And so, this is where you hope that your threat intelligence teams are monitoring those same feeds. They see that someone from your domain had credentials posted for sale on the dark web, and maybe you're able to certainly change passwords right away before further compromise could happen. If you're concerned about the data that was shared, maybe your company might even make a decision to purchase that thing, because it might just be a cheaper alternative to protect that information. But that's not the only thing. I think the far more common approach with compromised credentials is to go about a normal attack pattern. So once you've landed and you've logged in successfully, you begin your reconnaissance. You find opportunities for lateral movement within the environment, privilege escalation, creating new accounts and backdoor reverse VPNs to get back in case they find that the hole was compromised. Maybe they plug that hole, but they don't realize that they've set up something to get in after that. But it really comes down to, I think, what the motive is for the threat actor. If it's just simply data theft, they're not going to want to do anything that's really noisy and attracts attention. So they're not going to immediately turn around and launch this massive phishing campaign to everybody else in the address list, because that's a quick way to get caught. The other option is, they might want to use it as a foothold for doing more phishing attacks, because, in those cases, the email is coming from within as opposed to from the outside. So people might be more willing to trust that, and that can lead to further compromise and just, expands by wildfire there. Ransomware, of course, is a very common threat that can begin this way. And you have not just the kind where they encrypt your data and you have to pay a ransom to get the encryption key, which is, hopefully you're never in a situation where you have to do that. You'll have offline backups and other things to protect against that. But, they've gotten smart to realize that not everybody's willing to pay a ransom for a decryption key, which may or may not work and still requires quite a bit of time to even reverse decrypting all that stuff, rebuilding a platform. Can you trust that the integrity of the data hasn't been altered in some way? How do you know that the encryption key is even going to work? And does it also make you a target for further attacks because you've proven that you're willing to pay money to do that? But with that, these ransomware like to take copies of data before they encrypt it and lock it up. So even if you're not willing to pay the ransom, they'll threaten to release this information and extort it, on the dark web, and that also can bring a lot of attention. And of course, they could use it to spread malware, to expand their botnet, C2 networks, and so forth. So there's a lot of things that can come that starts with just a very simple phishing attack.
Yeah, true. Jean-Joseph, do you want to add something, maybe a comment?
I mean, for me, it's quite clear in terms of I've seen, my personal experience is that when you get somebody has phishing mail, gets the credential, and then as Mark said, you receive the mail from this person, which is not the right person because he has his credential stolen. Then it's say just send me some money because I'm stuck in the country or whatever. And so it's quite easy yet for transversal usage as well, and to spread the kind of trusted message and accelerate the phishing for others. So that's really I think the main issue as well on this part.
Okay, very good. Now, from a more practical point of view, what are what can be the quick wins businesses can put in place to counter those phishing threats? Very pragmatic ones. I think this is a question for all of you, whoever wants to start.
If I can, maybe I can start, and then Mark and Andre can add. But for me, as we said, you said at the beginning, 82% of the phishing attacks are real phishing attacks managed through the behavior of the person that's clicking or going on the website or on an email. So awareness, I think it should be one of the major points, and that's what we do. Trying to educate and maybe we are speaking quite a lot of zero trust. So always double check what you receive, and if you have do an action, then you have to I know it's difficult because sometimes you receive so many mails or even SMS, and when you are waiting for delivery, and then you are receiving a fake mail for we can't get in touch with you, please just click on the link to get your parcel delivered. And it's so I think be aware of that, and double checking for so that should be I think one of the first parts for trying to avoid or limit the phishing part.
Yeah. Andre, Mark, I think you have a lot of suggestions to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Andre.
Mark, you can start. It's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would say that, I'm a firm believer that facts are friends. And so, we all face this challenge of not knowing what we don't know. So if we can do some sort of analysis, develop key performance indicators to measure the effectiveness of our defenses, I think that's where it really begins. If you don't have good visibility into how many are getting through or how many are being blocked, then it's something that needs to be looked at further. I think the second thing is that we want to make it as simple as possible for people to report phishing emails. If they get a phishing email or something that looks suspicious and they start asking their friends or they're emailing it to other people, that just expands the attack window where things could be problematic. Whereas some mail platforms have basically a one-click kind of feature to report that. And so, if it's easy for me to report suspicious messages, even if it may be legitimate, but there's no harm in having some security professionals take a quick look at it. And it's important that team be available, that it not just be a a Bitbucket or file 13, where people, they send this stuff into a black box and they don't know what comes of it. There needs to be that dialogue and feedback of, yeah, this was a phishing attack. Thank you for reporting it. We were able to go through our environment and recall all messages of that from that sender. We blocked that sender. We blocked the URL that was in the email message. So you're able to respond much quicker to those attacks. Certainly, we talk a lot about the technology, but from my perspective as the global head of security awareness in Atos, it's important that we have a good comprehensive security program, an awareness program. So, and that's more than just training. Once your training is great, it's essential, but there really ought to be some sort of ongoing communications to kind of keep security in the forefront of people's minds. If they have a good working memory of, I need to really be diligent and look at things with, not necessarily with paranoia, but at the same time, just looking at it and saying, does this make sense? Does it add up? And then I think another way that we do it here in Atos is that we do launch periodic phishing tests to all of our population. And some of our staff are a little frustrated by that. They think that security is out to get them, and like we want to, jump out, haha, and hit them over the head and give them a sanction or some sort of thing. But from my perspective, it's the best quality check of the effectiveness of our awareness program. If people are getting these messages and they're reporting them, then I think we're doing a pretty good job of raising awareness on that. We don't have any intentions in Atos to use it in a punitive manner, because even with these tests, had they been a real attack, there could have been some serious consequences to that. These people are still victims to some extent, and so we use it as an opportunity for people to learn. And if there's people that struggle with it routinely, we're not going to force them to do anything, but we might say, hey, there's some additional training here that you might consider to help you identify dangerous links and ways to avoid it.
Yeah, thank you. And I must admit that I know very well those internal phishing attacks.
Yes,
I've experienced them. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Andre, maybe you also had a comment to do.
Yeah, maybe from the more technical side, the main point or main weakness point of a phishing attack is the acknowledgement of passwords. So removing the password is also a solution to prevent phishing. And with identity and access management products, we have mainly two very strong features to remove completely the password hassle from the end users. So without a password, they cannot give it to any attack site. And with a single sign-on, we have a very good approach to have a single point of entry on a secure entry point where the user authenticate once, and after they have access to all their applications without any password interaction. So without password, you cannot give it to any attacker site. And the second, what you also have is a strong authentication, which should base on phishing-resistant authentication methods, for example, with a certificate which is stored on a smart card, or also a mobile authentication where you get a pop-up on your smartphone, because for the attacker it's very difficult to implement the same level of trust and send you, for example, this information. So in this case, when the user never know that he has to enter any kind of password, he cannot give it to an attacker. And the good on our identity and access management solution is you can implement it based on your access strategy. So when you're on a mobile phone, when you're on a desktop PC, or in a scenario where you have a kiosk system with a lot of users switching side by side.
Yeah, thank you. This actually goes to the last question. I think we have time for that. Which actually, as a second step, I would say more systematic approach. How businesses actually can develop comprehensive solutions to fight on the longer term on phishing. We heard keywords that are even hyped now, like zero trust. We have passwordless approaches. Are those, I would say, the solutions that are on the technical, on the behavioral side, they're really today, let's say, the up to date, the most modern ones? If you really, as a question for all of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely going passwordless is going to pay dividends, or enforcing multi-factor authentication. That's going to make a big impact, no doubt. And I think this might be an opportunity to dispel a common misunderstanding that sometimes people think providing two separate passwords is two-factor authentication, and it's not. It's actually something and for it to be multi-factor, it needs to be other elements, something you are, like biometrics, or something that you have, maybe like a certificate or a token, PKI card, things like that. That's true multi-factor authentication. And even then, there's still some common exploits out there. If you're using SMS as a way to do that second factor authentication, there's man-in-the-middle attacks that can get in the way of that. Now, those are certainly less common. And I think part of security is sometimes making sure that you're more difficult to get into than the next guy. It's like that old joke about, you don't have to be the fastest runner when a lion's chasing you. You just have to be faster than the guy that's standing next to you. Same thing kind of applies in security. Maybe if people think it's too difficult to get into your organization, maybe they'll go try to find some lower hanging fruit elsewhere. But that doesn't give us an excuse to not, take a proper risk methodology approach to say, is this acceptable for us, and how much are we willing to invest in this? Because it has cost some businesses everything. They're out of business today because they suffered a data breach.
And for sure, I agree with Mark. And on that, is that we have the technology to do passwordless, like a new standard, FIDO2, for example. It's a very interesting standards because you are protecting the keys, and so nothing can go out of what you have. So it's a really good approach to protect. But as Mark said, that has a cost. So maybe not all application or not everything would be able to support this type. So in terms of risk assessment, to identify which sensitive application or businesses should be protected with a two-factor authentication or strong authentication like smart cards and certificates. So for sure, it has to be assessed and in the right manner. But we for sure we have a good solution to protect that against phishing.
Yeah. Also, I think no one of us has a 100% solution for it. You will always find some holes inside, and the combination of the methods of the authentication, of the awareness campaigns, for example, email filtering, checking for attack mails, the combination is providing here the highest level of security.
I agree. Thank you very much. Excellent contribution. Before I know we have some questions of the audience, and I think we're going to go through it. Just of what what I recall and message also is that we talked about technical solution behavior. It's really about applying both, as you said. It's a question of educating, of awareness, and putting in place the right technological means. I mean, this is really, it's a combination of both. As we said before, it's affecting the human factor in a very high percentage. Yes, we have questions from the audience. So for the daily user, what are the top indicators to find out I might have received a phishing mail? So really hands-on questions. How do I detect easily a phishing mail?
I could take a start at that first. So yeah, there's several what I call telltale signs of these are phishing attacks. They almost will always have some sort of sense of urgency that I need to act right away. Because if I don't, then I'm going to be charged this huge transaction for something I never purchased, or I'm going to lose my job because the CEO is appearing to ask me to give him information or something like that. In terms of the sender, if it's coming, if it's phrased as an internal message, like it's coming from your internal IT department and they're trying to get you to change passwords, is it actually coming from your corporate domain, or is it coming from some other external domain? Most mail gateways today will have an option where you can put a banner at the top of messages that gets attached to let you know this is coming from the outside. So be cautious, even though if they present to be part of your internal IT department, they probably wouldn't be using an external domain to do it. And sometimes, they use very tricky domain names. They might, a lowercase r and a lowercase n right next to each other look a lot like a lowercase m. So if you've got a domain name that has m in it, and they get a different domain with an R and an N, people might look at it quickly and just assume, oh, that's us. And in reality, it's not. So I think that's something to look for. Again, I think, some of the other more common attacks that you might see will usually have grammatic errors or spelling errors, and it's thrown together pretty, in a rush. But some of these emails and phishing sites are quite convincing. It's, when you think about how easy it is to stand up a phishing site using company logos and branding information that's available on your public website, if someone's really determined, they can put a little bit more effort into it. But the good news is that a lot of the security controls that we have today are really good at filtering those things out. But those are a few things that I advise people to check out.
Yeah. Thanks. I see time really flies. Please, for the audience, I recall that you can ask questions on the chat even after the live session. So take your time. If you have questions, just raise them. So thank you very much. Excellent contribution. Again, our objective was to raise awareness that on the subject, and that it's a question of technology, it's a question of behavior, education. And there's no, let's say, no one is on the safe side of phishing. We have to be really sensitive on that. I just want to recall the audience that we are having upcoming videos on identifying malicious website and identifying a phishing mail that will be posted also. So thank you very much. And good continuation, and let's be cautious on this phishing subject. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.